Hello everybody, my name is still Trinth, and today I'll be teaching you how to make graphics with the XNA 4.0 framework, but more specifically, how to make graphics for a game for Windows Phone 7. So let's begin. Firstly, I made this folder here that I've left linked in the description that has a few things. It has a little image of a beach that we will be using as a background, an image of balls which we'll be using to draw on the screen, and finally a font which I have yet to extract because we will get to this later. So I'm going to minimize this and we're going to open Visual Studio. Once this is open, we're going to click on New Project and go to Visual C#, XNA Game Studio 4.0 and Windows Phone Game. Don't click Windows Phone Game Library, just click Windows Phone Game. We're going to click OK. We're going to select version 7.1. And here we are. So firstly, we will see that we have a few things already done for us. We have all of the sort of boilerplate code that we need. And so, we can actually get started. Firstly, we're going to import the image of the beach, which is why I left this folder open. We're just going to drag it into the content over here, and we can start actually loading this and displaying it. So we got a sprite batch which we're going to use to draw images on the screen. Firstly, we're going to want to make a sprite batch specifically for the background, so we're going to change this to background, I believe that's spelled correctly. And we're going to need a texture 2D, so we're going to do that. You can call all of these things whatever you want, but I'm going to call it background texture. Now, on the content loading, we have to firstly change this because that doesn't exist anymore. We're just going to copy and paste that over here. And this is just initializing the sprite batch. And now we also need to go ahead and load the texture for the background. So since we already have it here, all we need to do is put background texture equals content dot load between these minor than greater than symbols. We're going to put texture 2D, and we're going to put just the name of our file. We're not going to put the extension, we're just going to put the name. And there we have it. Now this should already have loaded the texture into our program. Now, we're gonna go on to draw, and here we see that we have the graphics device.clear. Before I actually get into actually drawing the background, I'm going to explain what this does. All this does is just clears the screen and replaces it with a solid color. And you can choose colors from here. You get a wide variety really. You can just do color dot, and Visual Studio 2010 will show you what you have, all your options. In this case, since we're going to be drawing the background, this is not really needed, but I'm just going to leave it as white. Now, to actually draw a texture, we need to begin a sprite batch, we need to draw the texture, and then we need to end it. So to do this, we're firstly going to do background, which is the sprite batch we had, dot begin. Now, as you can see, begin has a few overrides, and you can actually control quite a few things with this, as you can see. And I'll actually get onto this in a bit. So for now, I'm just going to give it that, which will give us the default values. And now we can do background.end. And inside here, we actually want to draw our texture. So we're going to do background.draw parentheses, and we also see that we also have quite a few overrides. And we actually want to use this one, since we're just going to be drawing a background texture. So we're going to do background texture, and then new vector2 0 0, and then we're going to give it a color, which, as we saw over here, is done by just putting color dot and the color you want. In this case, this is the tinting that we're going to give the image. In this case, I really don't want it to be tinted, so I'm just going to give it white, and we end this. And now we have all of this done. So once we run the program, we will see an image of a beach. We have to wait a bit though for the emulator to start. And as we can see, now we have a little image of a beach. But we see this little var, you know, we have the little Wi-Fi stuff. This is not really full screen. So, what can we do to make this actually full screen? So firstly, we're going to close the app, and not by pressing this. We're going to close it by pressing this square over here, which will stop the application, as we can see here, and we won't have to open up the emulator again. If you close the emulator, you're just going to have to open it again, which is really not the best way to do things. So, now that we established that, let's go on to making the game full screen. So, we're going to go onto game 1, and we're going to see here. Now we have graphics. This is initializing the graphics, which is great. Now, to actually initialize this properly, we're gonna have to make it full screen. So, we need to do 3 things to make it full screen. Firstly, we're going to do graphics dot is full screen equals true. And now, we also have to do a graphics dot preferred back buffer width equals 800, which is the resolution of the phone, but you can change this. And graphics dot preferred buffer height equals 480. And there we go. Now when we actually run this again, we will see that the game is now full screen. There we go. No annoying borders to worry about. Great. We're going to stop this, and we're going to move on to displaying a font. Now, to display a font, we're actually going to firstly go onto here. We're going to go onto click here. We're going to add new item, sprite font, and here we can change the name. I'm going to just say font, but you can leave it as it was. And here we'll see this. Now, what if we don't want to use CORS UI Mono? Well, that's why I had the font there, right? We can go into here. We can actually extract this. Extract all. Extract. We will see this. Just see this over here. Very nice. We're going to install. And we will have it installed. Now, make sure your fonts are either true type or open type, because if that's not the case, then it won't work. We're going to minimize this again, and we're actually going to restart Visual Studio, since it actually does not load the fonts when you change them. It only loads the fonts when you start up the program. So we're going to open up Visual Studio again. We're going to open up our project. And now we need to actually put here the name of our new font. So we go onto fonts. We can search for a new font. Here it is. And we see that it's called Sofa Chrome. Very nice. We're going to put here Sofa Chrome. Sofa Chrome. And now we're going to actually have to load this. Also, this is a little bit tricky sometimes, especially getting the name properly, because it's not always correct. Sometimes you need to add things, sometimes you need to take away things. But if you keep trying, you'll get there. I'm not even sure this will work immediately, but we can change it if it doesn't. Now, we're going to go back to where we defined our sprite batch, and we're actually going to make a new one. In this case, for our font. Sprite batch. We're going to do font sprite batch. And we're going to actually need a sprite font. So we do sprite font 1. Nice. We're going to go again into our load content, and we're going to actually just firstly we're going to copy this and change it for font sprite batch, and we can also copy this. So we can also just copy this, but change it slightly so we actually are loading what we need to do. Font. We're going to change this to sprite font. So there we go, sprite font. We're going to change this to font 1, and there we go. Then we can actually again just I'm going to copy this. It's easier this way. Font sprite batch. I'm going to delete this. Font sprite batch. There we go. And now to actually draw the text, we need to do font sprite batch dot draw string. We select our font. In this case, it's just font 1. We put our text, which in this case I think I'm thinking of Hello Windows Phone. Hello Windows Phone. There we go. And now we need to give it the position, the color, and we can actually also give it a few more things. But maybe for now we'll just leave it as the position and the color. New vector 2, 200 and 350. I'm going to give it the color, which in this case I want it to be black. There we go. And now we're going to run this, and we will see that, oh, as I was talking about, it's not so easy to actually load the fonts, because it is very, very picky. Regular, I think that's how it's written. Yeah. Alright, let's try it again. Sofa Chrome is okay. I think you might get to what I'm talking about, right? Let's just load Arial. And then we can actually load the other one. As we can see, we got Arial on the screen. We can actually go ahead and stop this and then change the size here. Let's say 36, and we'll have a bigger font. There it goes. Nice. I'm actually going to stop this. And we can go back here and we're gonna try to actually do this properly. Sofa Chrome. Let's see with this. I think you might understand where I'm getting at. That it's not quite so easy. I've been having to, and also not all the fonts work. I had actually not tested this one out, but yeah, it might just not work, which is absolutely marvelous. But well, just make sure that your fonts are true type, and it should just work. It should. It's not so easy, unfortunately. I have one that I installed somewhere around here. Scriptina. Here it is. Let's try with Scriptina. This is one that I actually have installed, and as you can see, there it is. So you can install fonts and you can use them. It's just that sometimes it's a little bit hard to get the name right. You can try to do Sofa Chrome. Maybe that'll work. And no, it didn't. Anyways, let's leave it at Scriptina. I'm like 90% sure I happened to pick an incompatible font, which is fun. Either way, let's leave that at that. And also, since it was kind of crashing into the palm tree there, let's move it back a little bit. And we can run this again. And we see that it stays nicely there. Wonderful. Now, to end, I'm actually wanting to do something else. We're going to use the balls here, and we're going to import them. Balls small. I'm actually wanting to rechange this to just balls, so it'll be easier to use. Balls. There we go. And again, we're going to do the same thing we've done for everything else. We're just going to make a sprite batch and a texture 2D. Just balls batch, and then balls, and we can actually just copy this and reutilize it. Balls and balls batch, and we can load the balls. There we go. And now we got most things running, so we only needed to draw them. Now, I'm actually going to explain how to draw part of an image, which is quite useful when you're doing animations or tile sets, or mostly anything that has to do with video games. It's extremely useful. So, we're going to, again, do a balls batch.begin, and then balls batch.end, and in the middle we're going to use a specific override for balls_batch.draw. Balls_batch.draw. And we see here that we got one with the destination rectangle and the source rectangle. So we're going to use this one. We're going to put balls here, and then we're going to do new rectangle. And in this case, this is the destination rectangle, yes. So we're going to just put 0, 0, and then 84, and 84. And then new rectangle. For now I'm just going to make it the same, so that we have the same ball, sorry, the first ball from the image, which is going to do color.white. There we go. We can run this, and we'll have a ball in the corner. Now, we can do a few things with this. We can actually stop the program. Firstly, we can move it in the screen, of course. We can do 100 and 100. That's 1000, 100 there. And we can actually pick a different ball, which is doing 84, and we'll have the next ball. And we can run this again. And we will see that we now have a soccer ball. Wonderful. You can stop this again. Now, another thing you can do is actually do a little bit of scaling. For example, if I change this 84 to half of it, which would be 42 if I'm not mistaken, we can actually draw the ball at half its size. And as you can see, the ball has been now scaled down. Another thing we can do is stretch it. We can go actually 84 over here. And as you can see, the ball is now wide. Wonderful. And one last thing, and this is specifically for if you wanted to do pixel art, you're going to have to do your begin in a little bit of a different way. We can see that we actually have a few overrides, as I had told before. And we're actually going to want to use one of the bigger ones. So firstly, we're going to do begin.sprite sort mode .deferred. This is not important for the pixel art. Blend state dot alpha blend. Then we do sampler state dot point clamp. This is the important one for pixel art. And then we have to finish filling it up. So depth stencil state dot none, and then just null and the parentheses. There we go. And we can run this again. And in this case, we can't really notice it, but for pixel art, this works much better because it removes the anti-aliasing, which is on by default. But by doing that, you can remove it. So, that's all I have for today. I hope you had a wonderful time, and tune in next time where I'll explain how to do input. After that, I'll explain how to do audio, and maybe I'll also explain how to set up a few things around the icons and stuff. But other than that, that's all for today, and see you next time.